So tonight we are going to talk about interpersonal relations. Let's see. Oops, I need to stop it from going by itself. Hang on just 1 minute. All of the love of technology. I'm learning here. Let me go back to the beginning. It's doing an automatic scroll. So we love the fact that we can meet virtually, but there's always some tiny little thing that happens with technology, and we have to learn. So, all right, let's see if it. Okay, looks like it's going to do what it's supposed to now, or at least I'm doing what I'm supposed to. So, so as I said today, our topic for today's class is interpersonal relationships. And from the very beginning of time, God planned for us to have relationships with other people. In fact, in Genesis 2, starting in verse 18, it says, "The Lord God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him. Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. And whatever the man named each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave name to all the livestock, all the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found." God wanted him to have a human being to be in his relationship. So even though he gave him all the animals and the livestock and the birds, still something was missing. And that's what he wants for us as well. So with the power of love and intimacy, perhaps the best known example of the power of social connectiveness and how it affects health was Dr. Dean Ornish and his work on reversing heart disease. Many people, in fact, most people, when they think of his program, they tend to think of how a low-fat diet, exercise, and its meditation components. But if you were to ask Dr. Ornish to comment on the most important part of his program, his answer is always interpersonal relationships. He says, "I'm not aware of any other factor in medicine, not diet, not smoking, not exercise, not stress, not genetics, not drugs, not surgery, that has a greater impact on our quality of life, incidence of illness, and the premature death from all causes." This quote came from his book, Love and Survival, The Scientific Basis for the Healing Power of Intimacy, which describes in detail the important research in this area. The link between social support and health is very strong. So many studies have supported the powerful link that it has been named the Rosetto effect. That comes from a study spanning over 50 years in a little town of Rosetto, Pennsylvania. Coronary heart disease in Rosetto at the beginning of the study was half that of the two neighboring towns, despite risk factors being exactly the same in all those three locations. This intrigued researchers, and they spent the next 50 years studying every detail of all the lives of the residents in those three cities to determine why this was true. They discovered that Rosetto was settled by a tightly knit group of religious immigrants from southern Italy. During the first 30 years of the study, these families were characterized by a high level of social connectedness, extensive intermarriage, strong family ties, and a supporting, nurturing community. The researchers hypothesized that this high level of social connectedness might buffer residents from heart disease and early death. In fact, that was shown to be true when in the 1960s and 1970s, the cohesiveness of the community began to weaken, and the heart disease rates in the Rosetto continued to climb to the same level of those other two communities. You can imagine a study that went on for 50 years. I mean, I'm sure they learned a lot out of that study that really has kind of formed our patterns for social connectedness in therapy and in programs that have been created throughout our country since then. So 1 out of 3 people report having been feeling lonely. That was even before the pandemic. Since the pandemic and the isolation that has brought to so many people, this number is even higher. And as populated as our world has become, it's really surprising to know that a third of all people feel that they're lonely. So why do we talk about loneliness? I mean, yes, it's a sad thing, and nobody wants to have that feeling, but its importance is even bigger than just the the mental issues that come along with it. 25% of Americans say that they have no one to confide in, and 29 million people live alone. Loneliness is fast becoming a major disease with severe health and wellness impacts that even includes premature death. I read a study, I didn't bring it for tonight, but I read a study about loneliness, and they're calling it the pandemic epidemic, because loneliness has really grown in the past year. And you may have felt that yourself. You may have had those experiences of your own. There's a 3 to 5 times greater risk for heart disease with loneliness. Loneliness and isolation affect health negatively, and it increases premature death by up to 500%. Loneliness and isolation affect our health by preventing us from fully experiencing the joy of life. When people lose out on this most important element of whole person wholeness, they tend to engage in unhealthy coping behaviors and can sink into depression. Some of these unhealthy coping behaviors are smoking and overeating, which adversely affect our health. Loneliness and isolation also increase premature death up to 500%, as I'd said before, or more, or even more than that, independent of behaviors that they already have. In short, anything that promotes a sense of isolation often leads to illness and suffering. Anything that promotes a sense of love and intimacy, connection and community is healing. Diane Robb is a psychologist, and she has an article in Psychology Today on the new pandemic called loneliness. And she says, under normal circumstances, loneliness would be something we have some degree of control over. But the COVID-19 pandemic is making us feel that we have little control over our lives at all, and has increased feelings of isolation. Loneliness is particularly prevalent among senior citizens in normal times, and now it's even more common. She shares a story about her own mother, and she says, my mother, for example, is in an assisted living facility in New York, and she's under complete lockdown. She can no longer use her walker to take the elevator down to the first floor dining room for meals. Like all of us, her life has taken on a new normal. She's given her meals and is bathed in her small apartment by masked and gloved staff. Yes, she is lonely, and no, there's not much that can be done about it right now, except to talk to her on the phone. It does help at least a little to do that. We humans are social creatures who are defined by our social connections, and being isolated from one another can result in serious psychosocial problems. The mental health ramifications are quite frightening. But she gives some suggestions on things that we can do and how to help with those feelings of loneliness during uncertain times of isolation. Some of the suggestions that she gives is to schedule regular contact with others, either by phone or video chat. That's what we're doing tonight. We can't get together, but we can always be together on video. The best gift you can give to someone you love is to connect with them in some way. Keep in touch with supportive friends and loved ones. Think about those who care about you and reach out to them. This helps strengthen bonds and also makes you feel more connected. Give yourself permission to experience a range of emotions from sadness to joy. Don't make yourself feel bad about the fact that you do feel lonely. That's natural with what's been going on. Make sure to eat and sleep well, which affects your overall well-being. Eating a healthy balance of foods during regular meal times is very important. Spend time in nature, which can make you feel less alone and more connected. Enjoy life's simple pleasures, such as cooking, reading, and walking. Listen to music and take remote exercise or other types of classes. Consider journaling or writing poetry on a daily basis as a way to express your feelings. You might be surprised by what emerges when you write. This might be a time when you examine the joy in your life and reminisce about significant people from your past. Write a letter or a poem to loved ones who have impacted your life. This is an excellent way to connect with others, even if you don't actually send the writings. Without a doubt, these are very challenging times that we're in, and they're filled with uncertainty. We have no idea how long this situation will last, so the only thing we can do is lean into it. It's a good time to look forward and look inward, self-examine and dream. It's also an ideal opportunity to remind ourselves that we're human beings, we're not human doings. Also, it's important to remember that if there is no darkness at times, that we won't recognize the light. You know, it's surprising is that there's been so many young people from the age of 18 to 34 who have expressed how lonely that they felt this last year. A lot of times we think it's only the elderly who are isolated and don't have access to those resources. But this past year has really been mentally challenging to even younger people as well. There was a survey from Cleveland Clinic on how the coronavirus pandemic has changed our lives. And it said 4 of the most common issues of respondents in the 18 to 34-year-old age range was stress. 33% said that they had felt stressed during this past year. Another 30% said that they'd had severe anxiety. 24% said that they'd experienced depression over this past year. And 24% said that they'd experienced loneliness and isolation. What's even more concerning is not just the isolation and the loneliness, but the fact that by spending so much time by ourselves, we've started to kind of neglect our own care. So that 38% of respondents in that Cleveland Clinic report said that they had skipped or delayed preventative health care visits because of the pandemic, even though healthcare providers have gone to great lengths to ensure that keeping those appointments are safe to everyone. You know, now's not the time to start avoiding those things. Now's the time to take the best care that we can of ourselves, because the added stress, the added mental, you know, debilitating things that are going on in our country makes us more apt to develop illness. So please don't avoid those types of preventive health visits. They are so important, and more so even right now. So Dr. Syme and Berkman co-authored what many consider to be the definitive study on social support and the risk of death. The Alameda School County study is one of the most quoted studies in the field of health, and it gives some of the very best evidence for the protective effect of social support. The Alameda County study followed more than 7,000 people for 40 years. Again, a really long study. Sometimes you hear about studies and maybe it was 6 months or it was 8 months, but this one again was very long at 40 years. People classified as lonely and isolated had 3 times higher mortality. People with many social contacts had the lowest mortality. The amount of social support was the best predictor of good health. Social connection helps prevent premature death. It is a more powerful predictor of health longevity than age, gender, race, social economic status, self-reported physical health status, and health practices such as smoking, alcoholic beverage consumption, overeating, physical activity, and utilization of preventative health services, as well as a cumulative index of health practices. Research shows that people who lack social ties have an increased risk of dying from coronary heart disease, stroke, cancer, respiratory diseases, gastrointestinal diseases, and all other causes of death. So we've talked a little bit about social isolation and what this last year has done to everybody. What are some ways that each of you have connected with your resources during this past pandemic? How have you stayed in touch with people that you've not been able to spend time with? You can use the chat portion of the video, or you can just you know, speak out loud, whichever you'd prefer.
FaceTime.
FaceTime. That's so
wonderful.
important.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
It is. Do you have children or grandchildren that you're able to stay in contact with through
Well,
FaceTime?
I have children, but I'm closest at the moment to my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, which I love, because my grandmother died when I was an infant, and the other one died when I was 9. So to me, it's really important to reach out and connect with them. So the day that I'm not here, they have that memory of a grandmother that loved them and spent time with them. So I cherish those moments tremendously. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, a grandparent's involvement in their grandchildren's life is so important. And It's been very difficult, and I can say the exact same thing. My daughter lives, I'm in Florida, and my daughter lives in California, and I have a grandchild out there, and then she had a baby during the pandemic. So in
Oh,
October, she had a baby. So, you know, I've been so worried that my grandchildren won't know me and won't remember who I am. So we make sure to FaceTime every weekend. And I was blessed enough to be able to go out and see her after she had the baby. But you know, we're able to keep in contact and see each other. So
yeah.
thankfully, when my 4-year-old grandson saw me in October, he still remembered who Mimi was. So
Oh,
important. So
In the chat, Chloe also uses FaceTime.
okay.
And Beverly said phone calls and cards. I
Yes.
like cards.
I like cards too. You know, that's something that I have to admit, that's not one of the things that's my strong suit. But my mother, she lives with me during the wintertime. She lives in Indiana, but during the winter, she lives with me here in Florida. And she's so good about sending people cards and, you know, remembering birthdays and buying those cards ahead of time and sending them out. And, you know, I love it when I get a card, but I should probably be a little bit better about that because it is an important thing. And it just reminds people that you're thinking of them and that they matter to you. So
That's funny. Beverly said people like to get mail. And
they
that's really
do.
true.
They do. Absolutely.
There's one more comment. Ketsy, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It's a beautiful name. She said checking up on them, seeing them through a window or sliding door.
Absolutely. And you know, thank you for bringing that up, Ketsy, because for you know, our elderly people who have lived in assisted living facilities or in nursing homes this year, they've not been able to see their family, but thankfully some facilities have been able to let them see them through the window or through a glass door. And that's so important because they're isolated already. So to at least be able to have that eye-to-eye contact, that face-to-face contact, that is so important. So
that's one of the reasons why I missed the last class, because my great-grandson was transported from Kissimmee Hospital in Celebration all the way to the one Florida South. He was a little baby, 6 months old, had a fever that wouldn't go away. So they transported him, lights and siren. So that particular day when my daughter picked her up, I just had to go and sit and hold that baby and just with 2 masks on, actually, 2 masks. But it was so important for me to be there and hold that baby. And that just is just something that I just had to do. I said, I can take the class another day, but I just had to be there to hold that baby.
For sure. And is he doing okay now?
He's doing a lot better. Yeah. They just said it was a little bit of an ear infection, but they really couldn't pinpoint the cause. But because the fever was going down, but when you're 6 months old, I mean, everything is, you never know. So they were checking him for, I guess, COVID, but some other type of more extensive blood work that they get the results like in 2 days. But we're hoping that everything is fine. You know, he's eating, he's happy, he's clean. But you gave us a scare for sure.
Oh, I am certain of that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your answers on that. So support your immune system. You know, social support is a powerful health and wellness booster. A study on a group of 30 elderly people in retirement homes showed increased immune competence in terms of both natural killer cells and antibodies from being visited 3 times a week for a month. Lack of social support reduces suppressed T cells and is associated with a recurrence of some illnesses such as herpes simplex. Princeton psychologists found that undergraduates with low social support perceived their environment as significantly more stressful. They also had lower levels of IgA, upper respiratory defense antibodies, than did students with high support. In a study of 38 married women, researchers at Ohio University College of Medicine found that marital quality was significantly associated with immune function, including the percent of helper T cells and the ratio of helper to suppressor lymphocytes. The women who perceived that their marriages were satisfying and supportive had less depression and loneliness, as well as better immune defenses. Negative social interactions can weaken the important functions of the immune system. In married people, in a 30-minute discussion of marital problems where hostility was shown, there was a greater decrease over the next 24 hours on 4 assessments on the function of the immune system. In other words, your immune system is less effective when you're in conflict with your spouse or your loved one or your companion, even if you are otherwise happy and healthy. A similar study echoed this finding. Couples who had been married for an average of 42 years and had constantly argued had weakened immune systems. You know, it's one thing to talk about how good relationships impact health in a positive way, but it's another to know how to build good relationships. So if you can share with us, either in the chat room or out loud again, what lessons you've learned over the years about what it takes to foster the kind of social connectedness that are shown in these studies that can be so positive for our health. What are some things that you've done and things that you've learned on how to improve that social connectedness?
Attentiveness. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Attentiveness and communication.
Yes.
Very good.
Putting your phone away.
Yes, that's the point. Putting your phone away. Actually, gosh, and I find myself guilty of that all the time too. And I'm always getting a text from, you know, one of my staff members or one of the doctors that I work with, and I'll find myself totally ignoring my family. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. If I didn't have this phone in my hand, life would still go on. They would still get in touch with me, but I need to spend time with my family too. And I think that's just a habit that we've all, maybe not all of us, I hope not all of us, but many of us have gotten, and we just have to force ourselves to find time to put it down, because truly
I found that sometimes people are speaking to you, but they're looking down at their phone.
It's true.
So they're not really making any eye contact. So you kind of wonder, are they even listening to what I'm saying? Because they're so busy and you're speaking to them, but they have their eyes glued to their phones.
It's true.
So I don't even think they realize that they're doing it, because it's so kind of second nature now. Yeah. Unfortunately, the eye contact, it's not even there sometimes, which can be, it's like with everybody, sometimes acquaintances, friends, loved ones. So you kind of say, hello, I'm here.
Yeah. You know, I hear some people talk about how when they go out with their friends, they make a decision that everybody has to put their phone on the table face down, and the first person to pick up their phone to either text or send a message, they have to pick up the bill. So that might encourage a little bit more to leave that phone alone. I know I would think twice before I pick it up.
I would not touch it.
Yeah, I think that might be a good thing to try. So
something to try with my kids. Good one.
Absolutely.
We have one comment in the chat from Beverly. Allow someone to do something for you, like make a cup of tea. Helping makes one feel needed.
That's so important. Beverly, thank you for bringing that up too, because it's true. I mean, many of us are just very independent and we just do everything for ourselves. And but when somebody wants to do something for us and we deny them of that, we're stealing them of their gift, you know.
Absolutely.
So that is such a wonderful a wonderful point to bring up. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. So common characteristics of people 100 years old. You know, it's surprising how many people do actually reach that landmark of 100, and you have to wonder, what is it that they've got and how can I get it, right? So researchers studying longevity have identified the common characteristics of people who are 100 years old or older. First of all, they're active. They stay socially connected. They're non-smokers. They have a healthy diet. They get adequate rest, and they live with purpose. I love that phrase, they live with purpose. So social connection positively impacts our longevity. Support groups, we talked a little bit about Dr. Dean Ornish's program a little bit earlier, and support groups are a part of Dr. Ornish's program. The discovery was made that relationships that are nurtured and flourish play an important role in reversing heart disease. This research was groundbreaking. In another study done at UCLA, a group of malignant melanoma cancer patients participated in a 6-week, 90-minute weekly support group. Another group did not participate in that support group. Sessions included education, stress management techniques, ways of enhancing coping skills, and social support. 6 years later, the people in the support group had a 70% reduction in death rate and almost half as many recurrences of their cancer, as opposed to the group that didn't have the support group. In a landmark study reported in The Lancet, Dr. David Spiegel of Stanford University found that women with breast cancer who participated in psychosocial support groups lived significantly longer than cancer patients who did not. Dr. Spiegel intended to disprove the idea that psychosocial interventions prolonged the life of women with breast cancer, in part because Dr. Spiegel was concerned that he was often confused with Dr. Bernie Siegel, who had written several books stating that psychological and social factors could prolong cancer patients' lives. Dr. Ornish's book, Love and Survival, The Scientific Basis for the Healing Power of Intimacy, he reports that the groups in the study continued meeting once per week for a year. 5 years later, Dr. Spiegel told Dr. Ornish, "I finally got around to looking at the data and I almost fell off my chair. Those women who had the weekly support group lived an average of twice as long as the other group of women who didn't have that support group. All of the women in the comparison group who did not have the support group were dead after 5 years. The only women still alive were those who received the weekly support group support sessions. Also, the time from the first metastasis of the cancer to death was significantly longer than those who had received the weekly support groups." It's just so exciting to learn that similar functions and findings come from separate studies involving people with lung, breast, and colorectal cancer. And it just goes to show how important those interpersonal contacts and support resources are for not just the cancer patients, but for everyone, but what a profound effect it had on their lives. So what about social connectedness in older adults? What predicts positive aging? In terms of aging well, research shows that people who work on having good marriages age well. Those who are not married are encouraged to work on strengthening their closest relationships with friends and family. So let's talk a little bit about healing touch. Now, again, the pandemic has kind of interfered with our ability to have that healing touch, but it's still so important. And I'm a hugger, so I have to say this past year has been very challenging to me because I just want to grab somebody and hug them, and I guess I'm just not supposed to be doing that. So I've tried very hard to avoid it, but the desire to do that is still there. So those who enjoy regular, satisfying touch, a pat on the back, a warm hug, seem to enjoy their best health. Their hearts are stronger, blood pressure is lower, stress levels are decreased, and tension is reduced. Touch is very important to our health. Try these simple ways to add more touch to your life. We may have to wait till the pandemic's a little bit better or more people are vaccinated, but acknowledge your children with a hug, kiss, or a gentle squeeze on the arm. Shake hands when greeting someone, or our new way of shaking hands is that chicken wing, you know, get your elbow out there and bump elbows or bump fists. Hold a friend's hand while you talk. Get a massage, get a manicure, have someone else wash your hair. Volunteer to rock babies at a local hospital, or volunteer at an animal shelter or petting zoo, or pet or hold a dog, cat, or bird. From these examples, you can see that touch doesn't have to be dramatic or uncomfortable to make a difference. This was illustrated by an unusual study conducted at a university library. As students left the library, they were stopped and asked how satisfied they were with the service that they'd received at the library. What the students didn't know is that the study wasn't about the library at all. It was about touch. The library clerk was instructed to very lightly touch the hands of half the students as she returned their library card upon checking out. For the other half, she did not touch them. However casual or even meaningless this contact may have been or may have seemed, researchers found that the students who had been touched when she handed back their library card had a much higher opinion of the library service that they received than those who were not touched. In another study where tactile and kinesthetic stimulation was given to preterm babies consisting of body stroking and passive movements of their limbs for 3 15-minute periods a day for 10 days, the babies that were touched and moved were averaging a 47% greater weight gain per day, as shown on the first column of the chart that you're looking at. The second and third columns illustrate how the stimulated babies were more active and more alert during sleep and wake behavior observations. The infants were also assessed on the Brazelton Neonatal Behavior Assessment Scale. This gives a behavioral portrait of the infant, describing the baby's strengths, adaptive responses, and possible vulnerabilities. The stimulated babies attained a more mature rating on all of those assessment scales. Finally, babies who received human touch and movement had a hospital stay that was 6 days shorter. And this study says it yielded a cost savings of about $3,000 per baby. Well, I can tell you the way healthcare has increased in expense, if they went home 6 days shorter, these days it would be much better savings than just $3,000.
Yep, that's for sure.
I just love this story here.
Yeah.
Kyrie and Brielle were born 12 weeks early. Kyrie was doing well, slept most of the time, and was gaining weight. But Brielle was faring poorly. She was gaining weight slowly and had breathing and heart rate troubles that resulted in low oxygen levels in her blood. During an episode when Brielle was at her worst, one of the nurses decided to try something she had heard about at a seminar the previous year. It was a simple procedure. With the parents' approval, she took Brielle out of her incubator and placed her in the same incubator as Kyrie was in. She hadn't seen Kyrie since birth. Immediately, Brielle calmed down, her blood oxygen levels improved, and she began sleeping better and gaining weight like her sister. Occasionally, Kyrie would put her arm, oh, I just got goosebumps, it made my heart full. Occasionally, Kyrie would put her arm around her sister while they slept. Brielle fully recovered. This event played a significant role in changing the way premature babies are cared for in hospitals across the country. Many years ago, I was a NICU nurse, and it was right when they had started using kangaroo care, where they were encouraging, mothers and fathers to put the babies against their skin, even while they were still in the NICU. And I can tell you, it just made such a difference. And it not only made a difference for the babies, but it made a difference for the parents too, who, they're having to leave their babies in the NICU for whatever reason. And just having those few moments of that, intimate touch with the baby made such a difference. And it's just such a heartwarming thing. And I'm thankful that we learned so much from those studies and those things that they tried. So let's talk a little bit about the value of animal companionship. So first of all, who has a pet? Anybody have pets?
I just got one. My kids brought me a dog.
Oh, what kind of a
I
dog?
got a Dachshund.
Oh, a dachshund. How cute. And what's
a hot dog?
A little hot dog. I had a little hot dog named Bon Bon when I was growing up.
Well, she was a rescue.
Oh,
I got
wonderful.
it from a rescue shelter.
That's fabulous. What's its name?
Lilybell.
Lilybell. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, Ida, what kind of a pet do you have?
Yeah, I have a husky named Luna. She's beautiful.
She is gorgeous. I see you walking her.
And a golden retriever named Leo.
Aw,
He's very handsome.
I'm sure. Well, I have two little miniature schnauzers, Lola and Jack, and they go a lot of places with us, and they're the sweetest little things. We had two senior puppy dogs, not puppies, they were seniors. One was 16 and one was 15 that passed away this past year, and they were just beautiful little dogs. I had a miniature Maltese, not a miniature Maltese, there's a Maltese, and his name was Max, and I had a Shih Tzu, half Shih Tzu, half Poodle named Sam, and they were just the loves of our lives, and we miss them greatly. And it doesn't matter how many pets you have, one pet will never replace another one because they all have such a special place in our hearts.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyone else have a pet that they want to share with us about?
Nothing in the chat yet.
I have a Maltipoo named Max.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, a Maltipoo named Max. And how old?
He's 9 now.
Aw, they're sweet little dogs. Now, does yours bark a lot? Because my little Max did bark a lot.
Oh no, he does not bark at all.
Oh, that's good.
He's the sweetest.
My little Max was deaf from the time that he was a year old, and I just always felt that he did not hear how annoying it was to have him bark. I'm sure if he could hear himself, he wouldn't have done it. No, pets are so important to us. One of the ways nature encourages us to connect is through animals. Many animals naturally seek out human relationships that are beneficial to both parties. Contrary to life's destructive stressors, animals often offer unconditional love that soothes and heals the mind and body. This unconditional love is a glimpse of how God loves us. The unconditional love we get from animals is well illustrated by a study that discovered the positive effect a dog can have on lowering blood pressure activity. It even had a greater effect than that of a human friend. Why? Because the friend is often perceived as judgmental as opposed to a dog. The impact of pets on the elderly has also been researched. In one study of Medicaid patients, pet owners made fewer visits to their physicians than non-owners. Animals have been used to promote health in hospitals. Research has found that patients in hospitals, including mental hospitals, recover faster and are discharged sooner when pets are present during treatment. Those in convalescent centers and even prisons are being helped by animals. In one of the most successful programs of its kind, social worker David Lee of Lima State Hospital for the Criminally Insane in Ohio introduced small animals, such as fish, parakeets, and so on, to prisoners as mascots. Among the prisoners were murderers, rapists, and others who had committed violent crimes. Allowing the criminals to care for the animals almost completely stopped the fighting among the prisoners and suicide attempts. That's phenomenal. Another study found that after 1 year of being hospitalized with chest pains or a heart attack, only 6% of the pet owners had died compared to 28% of patients who didn't own pets. This finding was independent of disease severity, exercise, or other known factors. So several of you have said that you have pets. How do you feel when your pet greets you when you come home after you've been gone for even just 5 minutes? How does that make you feel when they—
Like a rock star.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, you're like the
I
most
just saw you, but yay.
that dog or that cat or that fish or that bird.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and I'm guilty when I come home of, taking time to greet Lola and Jack before I even say hi to my husband and my mother. So they demand my attention. My mom and my husband, they're gonna wait, but the dogs demand the attention.
Mm-hmm.
So people we care about share their triumphs, their victories, and other things. We can strengthen this bond through open, positive communication by affirming them, focusing on the positive, and by actively and constructively responding to them in sincere, authentic ways. Time is precious. Set aside time to just be there for one another. Actions speak louder than words. And here's that touch piece again. Enjoy touch, a handshake or the chicken wing shake, as we talked about before, a pat on the back, hugs, kisses, massages, etc. And practice forgiveness. A lot of times when we don't forgive someone, it's actually harming us more than they are. I often think about when I'm on my way to work or I'm in a hurry to get there or to get somewhere and, somebody cuts me off and it aggravates me. And sometimes I carry that anger or that aggravation with me. And then I have to remind myself, the person that did it, they went on. It didn't bother them at all. I'm the one that's suffering from it. I need to just get over it and forgive them for what happened for my own benefit, not for theirs. Pray for those who hurt us and seek God's help for the situation. So, do you think people like you? Well, then they do. Do you think they don't? Well, then you're probably right. Psychologist Rebecca Curtis and her associate Kim Miller of Adelphi University in Garden City, New York, randomly divided 60 undergraduates into pairs and had each pair chat for about 5 minutes. Then they separated the pairs and they told some of the partners that their partner liked them, and they told others that their partner didn't like them. Now, none of that was true, of course. Later, they had the students meet again for another conversation. This time, the researchers looked for clues. They found that when students were led to believe that their partner hadn't liked them, they started acting in unlikable ways, making less eye contact, sitting farther away, and revealing less information. But when students thought that their partners liked them, both partners got along better. In a related test, Curtis found that regardless of the researchers' provided ratings, the students who felt good about themselves were more likely to believe that the other students liked them. Our perceptions affect the reality of our relationships. A positive attitude about your relationship is very important to having positive relationships. Be flexible and have a plan B. Flexibility in relationships helps people to better weather the storms. And here's a strange idea. Don't play fair. We often treat people how they treat us. That's playing fair. But if you want your relationships to improve, then don't play fair. Love and forgive people, even if you don't think that they deserve it. John D. Rockefeller, easy for me to say, John D. Rockefeller Jr. said that giving is the secret of a healthy life. Not necessarily money, but whatever a person has of encouragement, sympathy, and understanding. We know John D. Rockefeller Jr. was most assuredly familiar with giving through the generosity of his father, John D. Rockefeller Sr. But here's the rest of his little-known story. He entered the business world with gusto and drove himself so hard that by the age of 33, he had earned his first $1 million. 10 years later, he owned and controlled the world's largest business. By the time he was 53, he was the world's first billionaire. Meanwhile, the people that he had crushed in his pursuit of wealth hated him. Workers in Pennsylvania's oil fields would hang him in effigy. He was guarded day and night by bodyguards. He developed alopecia, a condition in which the hair falls out. His digestion system was so poor that all he could eat was crackers and milk. He was plagued by insomnia. The point was reached where doctors agreed that he wouldn't live another year. And I just have to ask, how much was that money worth, that $1 billion, if he was in such poor shape, right? Then something happened to John D. Rockefeller. He started thinking and caring more for others than himself. He decided to use his billions of dollars for the benefit of others. Hospitals, universities, missions, and private citizens were the beneficiaries of the hundreds of millions of dollars he gave through the Rockefeller Foundation. His generosity aided in the discovery of penicillin. His contributions to medicine enabled researchers to find cures for tuberculosis, malaria, diphtheria, and many other diseases that rob so many of life. His contributions helped rid the South of its greatest physical and economic plague, the hookworm. When Rockefeller began using his riches to help other people, he helped himself. For the first time in years, he was able to eat normally. He felt renewed. He slept soundly. He defied the odds and lived to see his 54th birthday and many, many more birthdays after that. He kept on giving and caring for others, in fact, until he died at the age of 98.
Wow.
The point is to reach out and help those around us by living an unselfish life of service. So I just want to ask you all, has there ever been a time when you did something big for someone else? And if so, how did that make you feel?
I didn't do anything really big today, but I went shopping to get a dog harness. And there was a young man outside the store. He had a big sign, and it said that he was playing the violin.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he was getting money for rent and for food. So when I looked up and down that strip mall, there was another gentleman further down, and he was playing the guitar. So I had to get change because, you know, we pay with everything with plastic these days. So I had to go get change, and then I went and took a picture of him because he was just dressed so handsomely. And I put money in his little guitar case. I walked further down by the Publix, and I put money in the other gentleman's. He didn't even have a bag. I just gave him the money. And that just made my heart happy, you know.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I bet you left there smiling, and
I did.
It still stayed with you. I can see on the screen.
I did, yeah. I thought that was really sweet. You know, these days people are doing whatever they can to generate money because some of them don't have either a job. They're kind of teetering on even being evicted. I can't even begin to imagine what that feels like because I really wouldn't even know. God gets you through everything, but I'm thinking that would be so difficult, losing your job and teetering on losing your home. It's something that I can't even comprehend.
I can't either, and you
I
know,
can't.
and how humbling and humiliating for people who are used to making their own way and providing for their families and their children and to have to depend on the goodness and
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He wasn't even making eye contact with anybody. He was just playing his guitar and his violin because they were two different people.
You did a good thing today, Mildred.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have something they want to share? Well, I went on a mission trip a couple of years ago with a medical team here from the hospital, and we went to Kenya and we set up 6 different medical clinics for people that just had no access. We actually went out into the bush and into the areas where people were not able to get away from and have contact. And it meant so much to me just to see what us just being there meant to to the people. And it was an experience that touched my life in a way that I'll never get over the joy that it brought to me. And we realized that one of the biggest things that was really causing difficulty for the patients. I live in the hospital world. Everybody's a patient. I'm sorry. For the people, of Kenya was the lack of water. And in fact, some people, that's all they do their entire life is they get up very, very early. They go in search of water, and they, carry 50 to 60 pounds of water on their head to come home just to have water to cook with and to clean with. And then they get up the next day to do it all over again. And one of the most important things I think I've ever done in my life is when we got back, we were able to raise money for a well for one of the communities that we had visited there in Kenya. And, just to know, I'll never see those people again. I'll never, see them drinking water from that well, but I know so many people that are helped by that. And it's been a life-changing thing for them. And I have to tell you, every night when I lay my head down on my pillow, I literally smile and thank God for the opportunity to do that. And I really believe it means more to me than it probably means to each of them. Although I know they all appreciate it and it's a life-saving commodity for them. But I think that I've gotten more out of that than anyone else could have either. And so it's so true. What we do for others, really affects us probably more than it does them. So make time for others. Reach out to others and let them know that you care and that you're thinking of them. As we said, it's challenging in this pandemic time, but there's so many ways that we still can, reach out to people and let them know that they're important to us. And I think it was Beverly that said earlier, send a card. And I'm going to make that my goal. I'm going to do that more often. It's a simple gesture, and it becomes too easy to just send somebody a text message or to message them on Facebook or, send them a little emoji or whatever, but to actually send them something that they get out of the mailbox and open up and see. I think that's an important thing. So I'm going to make that my goal over this next week to do that.
Your bonus is you keep the postal workers working.
Absolutely.
My husband retired. He's a postal worker. He retired.
It's true.
So you keep them working. So to me, that's important.
It is important. You're
Very
absolutely
important.
correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So call someone special, set a lunch or dinner date. And you know what, even in the pandemic, we can set a lunch or dinner date and eat together by Zoom, right? I do that with my grandson in California. I'll FaceTime with him, and I'll sit there while he's eating his breakfast and, talk to him or whatever. And so set a lunch date and have a virtual lunch with a friend. And again, this part that makes me sad, hug someone. We can't do that right now, but we can give virtual hugs, right? We can give air hugs, and we can tell them that we want to hug them. So I think it's the thought that matters as well. So, all right. So connection is so important. And it says, remember, it's better to eat Twinkies with your friends than broccoli by yourself. I'm probably the odd person that prefers broccoli over Twinkies, but you can eat broccoli with your friends as well and be happy. Always remember that you are only one choice away from living a better life. All right, so that was our presentation on interpersonal relationships. Before we move on to Outlook, is there anything that anybody would like to discuss about interpersonal relationships, or anything that we didn't actually cover that we want to talk about? We do have a few minutes that we can do that if anybody's interested.
While we wait for any questions, I have 2 more comments. So we're going back a little bit, but Ketsy had a story similar to yours, Mildred. It was a family of 4 on a corner. They only had a $10 bill. Without hesitation, her husband and her just gave them their money and looked up at the wife's eyes and it just was watering. So she said that moment, she felt like it made her day, and it made their day, it made their week.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then Beverly, when we were talking about cards, she said, we also like to read and reread the card or note over several days. That's so true. I like to keep all of those.
It's true. It's true. Oh yeah, I still have, cards from when my kids were little and from when my husband and I first met, and it's an important thing. All right. Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to Outlook, and we can always, revisit at the end again. So, all right. Okay, so Outlook. An optimistic outlook helps us to get the best out of life. It's essential to health, happiness, and abundance. Outlook is a gift that we give to ourselves. A negative outlook turns off the lights of hope, changes love into hate, and peace into stress. But a positive outlook does the opposite. It brings hope, ignites love, and sets hearts ablaze. A positive outlook is available through the power of our Creator. Positive is what He made us to be, positive like Himself. Proverbs 23:7 says, "As a man thinks, so is he." Do our thoughts shape our life and affect our health? The Bible says they do. In fact, it all begins in our mind. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Because our thoughts shape who we are, it is vitally important that we choose carefully what we allow to enter our minds, because by beholding, we become changed. Each of us can become an optimist because a positive outlook is a gift we give to ourselves. One of the many benefits that comes from choosing to be optimistic is the increase in the body cells that fight off disease. Isn't it amazing that something as simple as choosing to be a positive person boosts our health? Do you know someone who seems optimistic and positive even amid dreadful or bad circumstances? And if so, what's the key to that attitude? And more so, how can you learn to apply that to your own life? Can you think of anybody in your lives that that you think of and you're always like, how can you always be so positive? I know we all have somebody like that in our lives.
I had a lady that I met many years ago. Her name was Josie. And she was really ill. She had an extended abdomen, which I'm thinking might have had problems with her liver. I've never heard her complain, not one time, not once. Yeah. Whenever she approached my door, she was like my neighbor from across the street, and I would see her. She always had the biggest smile. She was also diabetic with insulin, and she always had the biggest smile. And she would always come to the door and say, "Oh my God, it's such a beautiful day." Her name is Pritchard from Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I met this lady, and she was just such a gift to me. She was in her 80s. I remember once setting a table. It was a little bit a little cooler in Florida. I set a table in the back and I made some breakfast for us and had her come over. And that to me, I remember to this day, was a gift that I gave to myself. Sure. To just enjoy her company. And she did pass away from her illness, but I never ever, in the time that I knew Jody Pritchard, never ever heard her complain or say a word that was just like she was so down, it was such a bad day, she wasn't feeling good. I never saw that. She was an amazing human being, really.
And when you find somebody like that, you just want to be around them.
Yes.
You want to soak up that positivity from them.
I won't ever forget her, ever. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So let's take a look at a couple of amazing studies on optimism versus pessimism. This first study was based on 19,781 years of a person, easy for me to say. Let me try that again. The first study was based on 19,781 person years of observation from current vital status of medical patients who completed an optimism-pessimism scale 30 years earlier. Of the 839 patients, 124 were classified as optimistic, 518 as mixed, and 197 as pessimistic. 30 years later, follow-up information was available for 723 patients. The researchers' analysis of the survival rate among the 839 medical patients throughout a 30-year period showed that an optimistic explanatory style was associated with a 50% decrease in the risk of mortality or early death compared to those with a mixed explanatory style. So just having a positive outlook can give you a 50% better opportunity to have a longer life. I think that's pretty phenomenal. Dr. Seligman's attributional style questionnaire ranks individuals on an optimism-pessimism scale. He did a longitudinal study on school children. A longitudinal study is a study that is done over a specified period of time. Those who scored the highest for optimism stayed non-depressed, or if they did get depressed, they recovered rapidly. On the other hand, pessimists were the most likely to get and stay depressed. Seligman also found through his research that high scores for optimism are predictive of excellence in many areas, from sports to life insurance sales. This finding saved Metropolitan Life millions of dollars in personnel selection. He also found that college freshmen who rose to the occasion of the challenges of their first year and did much better than their talent on the average were optimists when they entered. Those who performed much worse than might be expected because of their GPA, SAT, or achievement tests had entered their freshman year as pessimists. To summarize these studies, Dr. Seligman stated in his book, Learned Optimism, that over and above their talent test scores, we repeatedly find that pessimists drop below their potential and optimists exceed their potential. I've come to think that the notion of potential without the notion of optimism has very little meaning. The great news is that Dr. Seligman and others have found that we can change our explanatory style. We can become optimistic, and in doing so, we can avoid or recover from one of the nation's leading causes of disability, depression. Look for ways of becoming more optimistic in the supplemental material at the end of the Outlook presentation selection. So if you have the workbook, you can find that material in there. If you don't have it, you can get it from us. On the other hand, someone with a pessimistic outlook tends to view their personal success as a result of what others did or just because they got lucky. They tend to view their failures as being caused by personal failures. In a crisis situation, a pessimist tends to see overwhelming obstacles that he believes will get the best of him. Overall, a pessimist feels that he or she does not have any control over the events of his or her life. But when a person has an optimistic outlook, he tends to view his success as the result of personal effort. Failures are the result of others or of bad luck. A crisis is viewed as a temporary challenge that can be overcome and that something good will come from it. Overall, optimists tend to have the feelings of control over their own lives. Seligman states in his book, Learned Optimism, that becoming an optimist consists of not learning to be more selfish and being more assertive, and to present yourself to others in overbearing ways, but simply to learn a set of skills about how to talk to yourself when you suffer a personal defeat. In the second study of 2, using the same group of individuals from the first study, the optimists reported better physical and mental health. Of the original 839 patients, 447 were still alive and completed an assessment tool that analyzed their physical and mental functioning 30 years after they were originally classified as optimistic, mixed, or pessimistic. The self-reported questionnaire assessed health-related quality of life concepts as perceived by the patient. The optimists reported a decrease in pain and in role limitations due to emotional and physical problems. They reported an increase in physical functioning, general health perception, vitality, social functioning, and mental health. In short, those with an optimistic explanatory style reported their life to be healthier, both mentally and physically, than those with a pessimistic explanatory style. If we choose to focus on the negative in life, we tend to have worries and fears. Worry is unhealthy, a fact that is illustrated in this 20-year study of 1,759 people looking at the connection between worry and heart attack. As the level of worry went up, so did the relative risk of a heart attack. Those with a moderate level of worry had almost twice the risk, while those with a high level had 2.5 times the risk of a heart attack. That's a 250% increase. So let's talk about how laughter and getting a good heartfelt laugh can actually help your heart. So laughter is good for our outlook and our heart. In fact, researchers found that laughter may help a person who has already had a heart attack. In this study, 24 cardiac rehabilitation patients watched 30-minute funny videos each day for a year. During the same year, other cardiac patients didn't watch those videos. In those who watched the videos, only 2 had subsequent heart attacks compared to 10 in the other group. Now, this is the second slide of the same study that we just looked at. This slide is a graphic illustration of what happened with the cortisol levels of the experimental and control groups. For this study, the experimental group watched a 60-minute humor video. The control subjects were not provided with any designed stimuli. They had a protocol of relatively quiet time with neutral stimuli. As you can see on the slide, both groups started with the same levels of cortisol, but as time elapsed, those who were laughing decreased their cortisol levels significantly more. Laughter is indeed good for us. Adults average 15 laughs a day. Children laugh over 400 times a day. So somewhere between childhood and adulthood, we lose 385 laughs a day. May each of us make a conscious effort and a choice to see the brighter side of life and to laugh more often. Well, I have to laugh at myself about 50 times a day, so I might be a little bit ahead of the normal average adult maybe, but when we choose to see the fun and humor in life, we are more optimistic and feel better because of humor's healing effects. For those times, though, when we find ourselves in darker, more challenging situation, here's another powerful tool we can use to remain optimistic: hope. Let's take a few minutes to consider the powerful effects that hope has on our health and well-being. Norman Cousins is possibly the best known for what he called the biology of hope. He told the story of physician William Buchholz, as reported in the Western Journal of Medicine. As Buchholz was eating breakfast one morning, he overheard 2 oncologists discussing patients that they were going to be presenting that day in papers at the national meeting of the American Society of Clinical Oncology. One of the physicians complained bitterly, "You know, Bob, I don't get it. We use the same drugs, the same dosage, the same schedule, and the same entry criteria. Yet I only got a 22% response rate, while you got a 74% response rate. That's unheard of for metastatic lung cancer. How do you do it?" The other physician responded, "Well, we're both using etoposide, platinol, Oncoven, and hydroxyurea. You call yours EPOH. But I tell my patients I'm giving them hope. Sure, I tell them it's experimental and we go over the long list of side effects together, but I emphasize that we have a chance. As dismal as the statistics are for non-small cell cancer, there are always a few patients who do really well. Hope encourages us to work towards a better situation. This can happen even in the face of a chronic or terminal illness. In a study of adults with Parkinson's disease, those who had the most hope were those who also engaged in the most health-promoting behaviors. Those behaviors included physical activity, better nutrition, spiritual growth, and interpersonal relations. On the other hand, hopelessness is devastating. Hopelessness is defined as a negative expectation about oneself in the future. Hopelessness has been identified as a strong independent independent predictor of cardiovascular disease, morbidity, and mortality in both the Finnish and American populations. The study presented on the slide included 2,428 men ages 42 to 60. Men who reported high levels of hopelessness at the beginning of the study had faster progression of carotid atherosclerosis than the men who reported low to moderate levels of hopelessness. Also revealed was an interaction between the amount of hopelessness and the initial amount of atherosclerosis. The progression of the disease was greatest among men reporting high levels of hopelessness at both the beginning of the study and at its end. Moderate hopelessness was associated with incident cancer in this particular study. Another interesting fact from the study was that highly hopeless men had a threefold increase of death from violence or injury compared with those in the reference group who did not feel hopeless. Our faith, hope, perceptions, and beliefs are powerful, but how powerful? Perhaps the best known example of the power of the mind to create physical changes in the body is found in what science terms as the placebo effect. A placebo is defined as a treatment or aspect of a treatment that does not have a specific action on a patient's symptom or disease, an inactive substance, a procedure with no therapeutic value. Another way to look at this is that placebos are considered to be useless substances or procedures. Yet the amazing thing is that in study after study across a broad range of medical conditions, 25 to 35% of patients consistently experience satisfactory relief when placebos are used instead of regular procedures or medicines. Perhaps even more amazing, research has shown that when many procedures, surgeries, or drugs are first introduced, the placebo effect is often much higher, up to 70 to 80%. Here are some examples of how powerful the placebo effect can be. Men who were told that they were receiving a drug that increased hair growth did not experience growth when the substance was only a placebo. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Men who were told they were receiving a drug, I'm thinking that doesn't make sense. So if they were told that they were receiving a hair growth substance, their hair actually growed, even when the substance that they were receiving was a placebo. And in lung capacity, children were given a drug and told that it would increase their lung capacity, and it did, despite being a placebo. And for fake knee surgery, which by the way, I'm not a proponent of fake surgeries and things like that, but we have to say that this has happened in the past, so it has its proponents of being a positive thing. But adults who underwent knee surgery for knee pain experienced the same relief as those who really did have the surgery, despite theirs being a fake surgery on their knee. The placebo effect cured nausea and vomiting. In women who were given a placebo, they were told would cure of their nausea and vomiting, and it really did. But amazingly enough, the placebo used was Ipecac, a drug that's traditionally used to cause vomiting. And when they were told that it would stop it, it did, rather than causing it. So negativity belief can actually become a reality too. It only makes sense that if our thoughts and beliefs can influence us positively, then it can also affect us negatively. In fact, the nocebo effect is the causation of sickness or death by expectations of sickness and death, and by associated emotional states. People commonly equate the nocebo effect with the concept of voodoo. There is, however, substantial scientific evidence that our thoughts can negatively affect our health. Here are some examples. Women who believed they were more likely to develop heart disease were more likely to do so than women who believed that they were less likely to. It is significant to note that the two groups had similar biomedical risk factors. When asthmatic individuals were told that they were taking a drug that would make their breathing difficult, the drug did increase their airway resistance, even though it was composed of a simple saline solution. A harmless look-alike plant that was said to be poison ivy caused rashes in allergic people. And one group of patients in a cancer study were given a completely benign substance and told that it was a powerful anti-cancer medicine that caused hair loss. Those patients actually experienced hair loss, even though there was nothing in that medication that would have caused it. So what kind of steps can you take and what changes can you make in your life that could contribute to a more positive outlook in your life? Can you think of things that you might be able to do in your own life that would help you to have a more positive outlook and positively affect your life?
I think the way that you talk to yourself is really important because
Very
you
true.
sometimes get on to yourself and you think it's just a quick little saying, but those sayings kind of add up. And so becoming more aware of like positive regard when you actually do good things and not be so hard on yourself if you're struggling really has helped me a lot with school and all that.
That is so true. And, you know, we always talk about how others' words can hurt you and, you know, but your own words can actually harm you even more because those are the words and the things that you hear inside your head all day long, every day, and when you lay down at night. So that's so important, and to love yourself and to treat yourself well above all, because how can you really be a positive factor for someone else if you're beating yourself up all day long? So that's a great point. The effect of a grateful outlook on psychological and physical well-being was researched in the first 3 studies that were part of the research project on gratitude and Thanksgiving. People who regularly listed what they were grateful for had many kinds of benefits. They had higher levels of optimism, alertness, enthusiasm, determination, attentiveness, and energy. They were more likely to help others, exercise more regularly, make more progress towards personal goals, have a better duration and quality of sleep, and more likely to feel loved. They had a greater sense of feeling connected to others. Gratitude encouraged a positive cycle of reciprocal kindness among people. One act of gratitude leads to another. I really like this saying. If you don't have everything you want, be thankful for the things that you don't have that you didn't want anyway. So that's so true. So vision gives meaning and purpose for life and a positive outlook for the future. A person's positive outlook helps their vision become a reality. Their optimistic approach fuels their vision. It's essential to understand that we always have a choice. People learn to become helpless when they perceive themselves to be in a situation where they have no control. When our environment affects us negatively, our natural response is to react in a way that negates that stimulus. If this is done over a period of time to no effect, we simply stop trying and we learn to be helpless. If you weren't able to join us the first week on the topic of choice, please go back and look at that when you get the opportunity when it's posted, because it's such a good topic, and Pastor Travis does such a great job of talking about it. And I would highly encourage everybody to take a look, of course, at all of them, but particularly in context with what we're talking about tonight with choice, because we do have a choice in everything that we do. Let's see here. I'm going to move past that one. So take a look at this slide. What do you see? Look at the letters across the top of it. What do you choose to see? Do you see opportunity is now here, or do you see opportunity is nowhere?
Opportunity is now here for sure.
That is right. That is right. We can choose to live with a positive vision for our life starting today. Swedish economist and statesman Dag, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. It starts with an A, it has a couple M's, it has a J, a K, an L, and a D in it. So anyway, you can make up your last name however you'd like to, but Dag H served as second Secretary General of the United Nations from 1953 to 1961. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1961 posthumously. He is well known for saying, "We act in faith and miracles occur." According to Herbert Benson in his book, Timeless Healing, The Power and Biology of Belief, it has been shown that there is a vital link between religious faith and health. The benefits include improved general health, increased survival, reduced alcohol, cigarette, and drug use, reduced general and death anxiety, reduced depression and hostility, reduced blood pressure, and improved quality of life for patients with cancer and heart disease and improved psychological symptoms, including adjusting and coping. The benefits also include an increase in life and marital satisfaction and increased well-being, altruism, and self-esteem. Sounds like it affects us a lot. So we should all be thankful that we can have faith, and we can not only experience what faith brings us, but have a better physical outcome as well. We can develop a positive outlook and change our attitude for the best by practicing optimism, living with a vision, maintaining hope in all situations, and by expressing gratitude each and every day. We can further obtain optimism by praying for peace, hope, and joy, by reading the Bible, especially God's promises and the Psalms. Express gratitude every day. Start by thanking God for all his blessings. Focus on your family, friends, colleagues, neighbors, etc. The body and the mind are intimately connected. I think as we also see today that our interpersonal relationships and our outlook are intimately connected as well. We've seen that our mind is indeed the control center of our body. Our faith and belief help bring about miracles, or it can help bring us down. Our perception of our health impacts us in profound ways. When we choose to be optimistic, it impacts every other part of our life. It impacts our ability to succeed. Adding humor to our lives helps us to manage everyday stresses and boosts our immune system. Our ability to avoid becoming depressed or our ability to recover from depression is powerfully impacted by our optimism or pessimism, which is our habit of thought. Our habit of thought can be changed and controlled by us. It is our choice. When we embrace hope and practice gratitude, life changes for us and for others. When we find and focus on our purpose in life, we can overcome obstacles and weather life's storms because we have something to live for. In this class, you've seen how the mind and the body are intimately connected and influence each other, and how our outlook impacts our health in profound ways. So as we get ready to close this part of the session, I'm going to ask you again, what do you see? Opportunity is now here or nowhere. It is or isn't, depending on how you choose to look at it. So the invitation to all of us is this: let's choose to live with an optimistic outlook that fills our soul with joy, hope, vision, and gratitude, so that we can live life to the fullest as God desires. Well, I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight, and if you've joined us before tonight, for all the sessions. I wanted to just close by asking each of you to think a little bit about the blessings that you have. What are some of the positive things that you have in your life, and some of the things that you have to be thankful for? Does anybody want to share?
Loving family. Loving family.
Absolutely.
There's this quick exercise that I like, as you were thinking for my family. I think that's the overall consensus.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But if you take your hands and you touch each of your fingertips, like with your thumb, touch it all through, maybe a few times through. I won't make you all stand up and sit down because I can tell you, but you stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. Blink your eyes 3 times. Take a deep breath in. Breathe out. Another time, deep breath in. And breathe out. I like this exercise because, as you can see, you all have a sense of touch. You can breathe with healthy lungs. You have a sense of sight. You're mobile. You can move. What else did we do? I think that might have been it. But see, there's so much to be thankful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Kathy said family, and then Beverly said we have the power and peace. That is for sure.
Absolutely.
So,
So what I would like to ask you is, as you think about the positive things in your life and you know, your blessings, how does that make you feel? I mean, do you find yourself smiling when you think about that? And do you find yourself getting like a warm feeling when you think about the things that you have in your life? Because those are the things that we talked about tonight. That's optimism. That's knowing that no matter how bad things might seem on the outside, you've always got something on the inside that you can count on. And, you know, that's that optimism that we talked about, and you do have a choice for that. So my wish for all of you is that tomorrow you wake up and you decide that it's going to be a good day. You laugh 85 times more than you did today. You think about the things that are positive in your life, and you reach out to somebody that you care about that might need to hear from you. And I hope
Absolutely.
that you have a fabulous day tomorrow. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you
Thank you.
very much. So, Ida, is there anything that you'd like for any housekeeping tips or anything that we need to share about how they can actually get the videos?
Absolutely. So thank you all. Thank you all so much. And thank you, of course, Darla. That blew me away.
Oh, wonderful. I enjoyed it myself. So.
Good.
Thank you.
In the chat, I put the link to the assessment. I know this is the last class, but it wouldn't, if you haven't done it yet at all, it's not too late. And if you have done it, it's nice to do it again after the series to see kind of where you stand now. So that's in the chat. And I also put Sean and I's contact in there again. And you can reach Darla through one of those
Absolutely.
contacts. But going forward, I think it'll be early next week once the three of us connect again, Darla, Sean, and I, and we will send out an email with some more resources and then the recordings to all of the sessions.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And what I would ask of all of you too, you know, we're going to be doing different series throughout the year, and, you know, bringing different community outreach opportunities. So if there's something that you would like to hear about, something that you would like for us to share with you, please send that, you know, information as well, because we want to be able to present, you know, videos or seminars or talks that are meaningful to you, and, you know, that address the issues that you want to hear from us about. So please let us know, because it makes us happy when we're able to share something that matters to people. So anyway, thank you, each of you. And thank you so much. And you have a blessed evening, everyone.
You too. Thank Ida.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Darla.